If you're interested in what I look like in real life and want to learn more about me, then follow my Instagram page at Joe the Insomniak. This happened in May of last year. I was staying with my ex-mother-in-law for the past year while my son and I get back on our feet. She lives in a fairly decent neighbourhood, not one of the rich ones with HOA, but not one of the crackhead ones either. Just a simple middle class neighbourhood. Back in March and April time, there had been reports on the neighbourhood site about some cars being broken into by presumably kids. Not a huge deal, and after not keeping anything important in the car, I always found myself brushing it off. So one night, I feel pretty sick, and she offers to watch my son if I wanted to sleep downstairs for the night. Grateful for the offer, I accept and make my way downstairs. At this point, I should explain the layout more. Upstairs is a finished, with 3-bedroom, 2-bath style house. Downstairs is a garage that finishes off and turns into 3 extra bedrooms. 2 of the bedrooms are off to the left, the other one to the side. You have to pass the laundry room and a storage room to get to the other one. This room is completely closed off from the rest of the home. In the storage room as well, there's a door that leads outside. This door is kept dead-bolted and chained at times. Keep this in mind. So I climb into bed. It's probably about 9ish by this point. I fall asleep fairly quickly. The rest of this is kind of a blur. At some point during the night, I begin hearing noises which I brush off as someone walking around upstairs, and I go back to sleep. The noises make me wake up a few more times before I realise that they're in my room. At this point in time, I realise a cat must have gotten into the room. I didn't get up, but I glance around the room as I can see the entire layout of the room from where I'm laying. Over by the window, I see a white thing moving. Now I realise the cat must have followed me down without being noticed. Annoyed, I get up, realising what I'm seeing. It's not a white cat. It's not even a cat at all. It's a curtain. Someone's looking through the window. At this point, I freeze. I don't know what to do. I just laid there and watched as somebody climbed through the window and stands up. He was wearing a hat and stood average male height. At this point, I could tell he was looking my way, but can't make out any features. He walked over to my bed, leaned over till we're face to face. I don't know if he could see my eyes or not. I wanted to scream or say something, but I didn't, as I knew nobody could hear me up there. My heart's pounding, and it took everything I had to stay still and not scream. I didn't want to. This man was less than a foot away from my face as he leans over the bed. I thought about making a move or saying something, but I couldn't make my mouth or body move. I'm just paralysed. He then just turns away and walks out of the room. I hear the deadbolt to the door click outside. The door opens and he left. I heard him then come and close the window. At this point, I hear the noises I heard earlier with him prying the window open. At this point, I call my ex-mother-in-law as I'm hysterical and can't move. The worst part? She doesn't even believe me. She told me everything was locked up, so it was a nightmare. And then get up, check the window, and it's been pried open. Now she comes downstairs, and I see that the door that leads outside was unlocked. All 3 locks are undone. This was a point that she realises I'm not making it up. I never found out who this was or what they wanted. This just happened a few days ago, and I'm extremely shaken up. For some backstory, I live on the second floor of a 3-level apartment. We have a crawlspace that connects all the apartments. We aren't sure why it's there, but we all have stuff in it. None of us would even attempt to go inside of it. The other night, the sun was setting, but it wasn't pitch black out or anything yet. I walk through my living room where I see a short woman on my fire escape looking into my windows. This is extremely bizarre, considering it is still semi-light out, and she had literally got out onto the fire escape somehow. We have 2 windows that the fire escape reaches. She was looking in both and didn't see me. I crawl onto the ground. My heart was racing as I watched her trying to open the windows. I didn't know what the hell to do because my phone was in the other room. After what seems to be an eternity, she left. I went into my room to get my phone to text my landlord to call the cops. I come back to the living room and was looking out of the window to see if I can locate her when, all of a sudden, I hear a weird noise coming from the ceiling. We have one of those ceilings that is separated by cork and wood. I look up to see one of the slabs lifted, 2 eyes staring at me. I have no clue how she got into the crawl space so quickly, but I grab a broom next to me and hit her through the ceiling and call the cops. She crawls away. They showed up and searched the place, not finding her until days later when she was on someone else's fire escape. The cops said that she definitely had some hard drugs up there. I'm just glad she's gone and hope she never returns. The creepiest thing to ever happen to me only lasted a few seconds. I was 8 years old. My brother was 6. It was summer. We're sitting alone in the back of my grandmother's car. This was because she had to quickly buy eggs or something, so she parked on the side of the road, right in front of a small grocery store, and left us inside the car. I suppose she thought we'd be alright, since she's only going for a minute, and the locked car was only a feet away from the store. She had only gone for a few seconds when a tall, skinny man stopped next to the car window and then bent down looking in at us. My brother and I are really confused because we didn't know him. So we just stare back at him. He then reaches slowly through with his arm, which was open because it was hot and we didn't have aircon. Now while staring into my eyes, this confuses me even more. I remembered thinking maybe he was gonna remove or fix something inside the car because what he was doing made no sense. He very lightly laid the tip of his index finger on my thigh. He just left his finger there, unmoving for a couple of seconds, staring into my eyes with his mouth half open. I remember he was missing teeth. It really didn't last long at all, but it felt like an eternity. Then he pulled his arm away and walks off. My grandmother came back a few seconds after. I wanted to pretend the whole incident never happened and didn't mention it to her, but my brother told her. She wanted a description, but all we could say is tall, skinny, dark, missing teeth. Unfortunately, there's way too many people in the neighbourhood who fit that description. I felt a little nausea for the rest of the day. This really stuck with me my whole life. Ever since I can remember, I've always been afraid of white utility vans with blocked out back windows. I'm in 6th grade, and I used to pick up my sister who's in the 1st from school, and then walk to our restaurant where my mum worked, and hang out for a little while and eat dinner while she's on shift. One day, as we're walking out of our apartment complex and approach the gate, one of those creepy vans pull up on the blocked off gate. He was not trying to exit. He was purposely blocking our path. We slowed down, then the driver hopped out of the car, walking over to the passenger side, opened his door, then started coming running towards us. I freak out immediately, grabbed my sister's hand, yelled run. We ran back to our apartments, as the guy got back into his car and followed us. I locked us in the apartment, and my sister and I hid in our room, staying very quiet. There was a knock at the door, and we were both crying. I called my mum, but since she's working, she doesn't answer. Then I get the guts to look out the window in the living room, and sure enough, the white van's there. Later on, I speak to my mum, and she didn't believe me. When we got home, there's a piece of paper stuck in the door. No writing or anything. So strange. Back in 2011, I was within a circle of friends that made it a tradition to go camping at a certain spot every May long weekend. The spot we chose was in a beautiful area right on the edge of a large lake, and was located on government land. The lake itself had a dam on it, so during May long, the waters were always low, if not completely empty, making it possible to walk across. People are allowed to camp there, as long as they're not causing trouble or making a mess. And it was generally a good time for everyone. The spots themselves were spaced far enough apart that you'd have your own privacy, but not far enough that you couldn't meet other people. In this particular year, our spot's in the middle of a small hill, with one campsite below us and one above. The first part of the night trip happened without incident. During the second day, the people staying at the site below us had moved in. We don't think much of it, continued drinking throughout the day and into the night. At around midnight, the people at the campsite below us are really out of control. Yelling and screaming. Their music had got much louder, so our friend Ben goes down to ask them to turn it down. He was punched in the face. He then comes back to tell us that with 90% certainty they're on drugs. After that, the vibe wasn't relaxed, and we were all somewhat on edge. I was super tired. I just decided to go to bed, with some of my friends still awake, including Ben. And one couple that were visiting another campsite we made friends with on that day. I could hear the campsite below, blasting their music, partying hard, but I just tried to ignore it and go back to sleep. I don't know what time it was when I was jolted awake. Parts of this are somewhat a blur. All I know is that I sat straight up as soon as I heard the screaming and yelling coming from outside my tent. I quickly ran outside to find our campsite in chaos. One of my friends is clutching their chest. People were running around screaming for 911. I was quickly informed of what had happened. Apparently, not long after I gone to bed, the people camping at the site below us decided they weren't finished talking to Ben. On their way up, they had encountered Lily and Derek walking back. Now Derek and Ben are about the same height and have the same colour hair, so they assumed that Derek was Ben, bolted to him, hit him on the head with a glass bottle. I didn't know if it was the same guy that showed up later at our campsite, but I was told that everyone was sitting around the campfire when 2 or 3 huge guys appeared from the darkness and walked over to them. One had a paring knife, the other a butcher knife in hands. Ben saw the knives and had gotten up to talk to them, and had barely spoken a word. When the guy with the paring knife stabbed him once in the chest, at the same time, some people from the campsite above had seen the guys come in and came down to help. One of the guys, Tim, was coming down the hill when the guy with the butcher's knife ran up and stabbed him in the stomach. From there, sheer panic ensued. Police called 911, but the ambulance was over an hour away. This is where I come out of the tent. Tim was bleeding profusely, and he was losing blood way too fast. His friends ended up putting him in the back of their car, speeding off to meet the ambulance halfway. Ben was cut too, but not really that deep, so he just waited until the ambulance arrives. The guys ran off into the darkness, back down to their campsite, took off in their Land Rover. My boyfriend at the time and I got into his car and drove to the entrance to try to flag down the policemen on their way to the scene. Once they arrive, they're informed to stay in the car as they had released a sane search unit to hunt down the people who stabbed our friends. By the end of the night, they had arrested the men. They had tried to flee by driving their vehicles across the lake bed, but they got stuck halfway. They were on a concoction of drugs, as suspected. Luckily, both Tim and Ben survived, although Tim lost a lot of blood, taking weeks to recover. It's the most terrifying thing that I've ever experienced in my life.